Jake Morrison walked into the giant meeting room on Space Station Unity. His heart was beating fast, but his face stayed calm. He had done this walk many times before, but today was different. Today, everything would change. The room was huge, with a high ceiling that seemed to go on forever. Hundreds of alien beings sat in their special chairs, each made for their different body types. Some aliens looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few looked almost human, but with strange colored skin and too many arms. Jake wore his best blue suit with the Earth flag on his shoulder. Behind him walked Lisa Campbell, a strong woman who commanded Earth's space military. Her uniform was crisp and clean, with shiny medals on her chest. She kept her hand near her communication device, ready for the signal they all knew was coming. The Zephyrian Coalition controlled most of the galaxy. For over 300 years, they had been the rulers of space. Every planet, every trade route, every resource had to go through them first. They decided who could travel where, who could buy what, and who had the right to exist as a free people. Humans had been part of their system for only 3 years. It had been 3 years of Hell.Chancellor. Vex Prime sat at the center of the room on a platform that raised him above everyone else. He was 12 feet tall and made of blue crystal that sparkled under the lights. When he spoke, his voice came through speakers around the room, because his real voice could break human eardrums. "Human Ambassador Morrison," Vex Prime said. His voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with thunder. "We have been very patient with your people. Today, you will accept our final offer." Jake stopped in the center of the room. All around him, hundreds of alien eyes stared down. Some aliens made clicking sounds with their mouths. Others moved their tentacles in what Jake had learned was alien laughter. They thought this was funny. They thought humans were weak and stupid. "We are listening," Jake said. His voice was steady and clear. Vex Prime's crystal body flashed brighter. "Your people will give us 60% of everything you make in your factories. Your scientists will work for us. Your soldiers will serve under our command. You will move all your people from the outer planets, because we need those worlds for our own use." The room got very quiet. Even the clicking and tentacle waving stopped. "In return," Vex Prime continued, "we will let your species continue to exist. You will have a small voice in galactic affairs. You will be protected under our wing, like children under their parents." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept it hidden. He had practiced this moment in his mind 1,000 times. Lisa Campbell shifted slightly behind him. She was ready. "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. Vex Prime's laugh sounded like a mountain falling down. "Then you will learn what happens to species that do not cooperate with the natural order. Look around. You, human. Every being in this room represents a world that learned to follow our guidance. Those who refused are no longer with us." Jake looked around the room. He saw the fear in some alien faces. These were not willing partners. They were prisoners who had learned to smile at their captors. On the viewing platform above, Captain Ryan Davis watched through a window. He wore the black uniform of Earth Defense Force Special Operations. His hand held a small device that would send a message to every human ship, station, and colony in space. All he needed was the word from Jake. "You make an interesting offer," Jake said slowly. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "I have here the official response from the United Earth Federation." Vex Prime leaned forward. His crystal body made scraping sounds against his chair. "Excellent. You see reason at last." Jake held up the paper and began to read. "The United Earth Federation formally withdraws from all negotiations with the Zephyrian Coalition, effective immediately." The room exploded in noise. Aliens started shouting, clicking, and making sounds that Jake could not even identify. Some jumped from their seats. Others started moving toward the exits. We will no longer participate in any diplomatic processes that treat humanity as a subordinate species, Jake continued, his voice growing stronger. We reject your protection, your guidance, and your authority over human affairs. Vex Prime stood up to his full height. His crystal body was now glowing bright red with anger. You cannot simply leave, humans. Your species lacks the strength to survive without our protection. You are children playing with weapons you do not understand. Jake carefully folded the paper and put it back in his briefcase. Lisa Campbell moved closer to him, her hand now openly holding her communication device. You have made your position clear, Chancellor, Jake said. Now we have made ours clear as well. Humanity chooses to forge its own path through the galaxy. This is madness. Vex Prime's voice was so loud that some smaller aliens covered their ears. You have no ships that can match ours. You have no weapons that can threaten us. You control no resources we cannot take. What do you think you can accomplish alone? Jake smiled for the first time since entering the room. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would change everything. Chancellor, you have spent so much time ruling others that you forgot to ask an important question. You never asked what we have been doing while you were busy making demands. Lisa Campbell pressed a button on her device. High above them, Captain Ryan Davis saw the signal and pressed his own button. Across human space, from Earth to the farthest colonies, computers received a simple message. Protocol 7 is active. Begin immediately. Jake picked up his briefcase and started walking toward the exit. Lisa Campbell walked beside him, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Behind them, the aliens continued to shout and argue among themselves. You will regret this decision, Vex Prime called after them. When your colonies are starving and your ships are broken, you will come back to us begging for mercy. Jake stopped at the door and turned around one last time. Thank you for your concern, Chancellor. But humanity has been preparing for this day longer than you might think. Good day. As the human delegation left the room, none of the aliens noticed the small devices that Jake's team had placed around the station during their visit. In exactly 6 hours, those devices would activate and send detailed information about Zephyrian military positions to every human commander in space. The day humans ended, talks had begun, and the Zephyrians had no idea what was coming next. Dr. Helen Grant stood in the middle of the biggest secret on Earth. Around her, machines the size of buildings hummed with power. The room was so large that she could barely see the other end, even with all the bright lights hanging from the ceiling. This place did not exist on any map. The government said this mountain in Montana was just a research station for studying rocks. Nobody knew that inside the mountain was the most important project in human history. Status report, Pete, Helen called out to her chief engineer. Pete. Jackson looked up from his computer screen. His face was tired but excited. He had been working for 18 hours straight, just like everyone else in the facility. All systems are ready, Doctor. The quantum tunneling drives are working perfectly. We can have the first manufacturing platforms built and sent out in 3 days. Helen smiled. 3 years of work was finally ready to be tested. While ambassadors and politicians had been arguing with aliens, the best scientists and engineers on Earth had been building something that would change everything. Show me the numbers again, Helen said. Pete pressed some buttons, and a big screen lit up on the wall. It showed pictures of space, with dots marking where human colonies were located. We have 47 manufacturing platforms ready to go. Each one can build a complete industrial complex in deep space using nothing but materials from asteroids. Helen nodded. The quantum manufacturing technology was something no other species in the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of building factories on planets, humans could build them anywhere in space. All they needed were rocks floating in space, and they could turn those rocks into anything they wanted. What about the defensive systems? Helen asked. Ready and waiting, Pete said. Every human colony has been secretly upgraded over the past 6 months. What the aliens think are weak farming settlements are actually fortress worlds that can defend themselves. On the other side of the facility, Admiral Kate Sullivan was talking to colony commanders on a secure communication channel. Her voice was calm and steady as she gave orders that would keep millions of humans safe. Confirm receipt of Protocol 7 activation, she said into her microphone. All defensive systems are now online. Repeat, all systems are online. One by one, voices came back from distant worlds. New Terra confirms. All systems online. Mars colony confirms. All systems online. Titan base confirms. All systems online. Kate looked at the big map on her wall. It showed every human settlement in space. 3 years ago, these settlements had looked weak and scattered. The aliens had seen them as easy targets of humans. Ever caused trouble. But the aliens had made a big mistake. They had not been watching carefully enough. Each human colony now had weapons that could destroy alien ships from very far away. Each colony had factories that could build whatever they needed. Each colony had enough food and supplies to last for years without any help from the outside. The aliens always said we were too spread out, Kate said to her assistant, Commander Ben Turner. They thought spreading out made us weak. They never realized it made us impossible to destroy all at once. Ben smiled. He had been one of the people who helped plan the secret upgrades to the colonies. Every settlement is connected to every other settlement through quantum communication links. Even if they destroy half of our worlds, the other half will still be able to work together. In another part of the mountain facility, Dr. Amy Foster was working on the most secret project of all. Her team had been studying alien technology for 2 years, ever since humans had been forced to join the galactic community. The analysis is complete, Amy said to Helen when she walked over. The aliens have a serious weakness. They have been using the same technology for hundreds of years. They never tried to improve it because they never had to fight anyone as strong as them. Helen looked at the data on Amy's computer. What does this mean for our ships? Our new ships are faster, stronger, and harder to detect than anything the aliens have, Amy said. We took their old technology and made it much better. But the best part is that our ships can do things alien ships cannot do. Like what? Our ships can hide completely from alien sensors. Our weapons can shut down alien ships without destroying them. And our armor can absorb their weapons without taking damage. Helen felt excitement growing in her chest. How many ships do we have? The first 100 ships came off the production lines yesterday. We can build 50 more ships every day. While the scientists worked in their hidden mountain, other humans were doing different kinds of secret work. Claire Rodriguez sat in a small restaurant on Kepler Station, a neutral trading post between human and alien space. Across the table, from her sat Ambassador Joran of the Altarian Republic. Joran looked like a tall, thin human with purple skin and silver eyes. His people had been part of the Zephyrian coalition for 60 years, but they had never been happy about it. Your people really withdrew from negotiations? Joran asked quietly. The news reports say it is true, but many of us thought it was some kind of trick. Claire shook her head. No trick. We are done taking orders from the coalition. But we are not done making friends in the galaxy. Joran leaned forward. What are you offering? Mutual defense agreements, fair trade deals, technology sharing. Everything the coalition promised, but never delivered. And if the coalition attacks us for working with you? Claire smiled. Joran, in 3 days, you are going to see that the Coalition has bigger problems to worry about than what their former members are doing. What do you mean? Let me ask you a question. How many Coalition supply ships pass through this sector every day? Jorin thought for a moment. Maybe 20 or 30. Why? Tomorrow. Count them again. I think you will be surprised. 3-star. Systems away, Captain Steve Parker was getting ready to test human technology against alien ships for the first time. His ship, the UES Phantom, was completely invisible to alien sensors. He could fly right next to alien ships, and they would never know he was there. Target confirmed, said Lieutenant Nancy Brooks from her weapons station. Coalition supply convoy, 12 ships, carrying manufactured goods to the Proxima sector. Steve looked at the alien ships on his screen. They were flying in a straight line, not worried about any threats. They had been flying the same route for so many years that they had stopped being careful. Are the non-lethal pulse weapons ready? Steve asked. Ready, Captain. One shot will shut down their navigation and communication systems without hurting. Anyone, fire when ready. Nancy pressed a button. An invisible beam of energy shot from the Phantom and hit the lead alien ship. Immediately, the ship's lights went out and it stopped moving. One by one, Nancy fired at each ship in the convoy until all 12 ships were floating dead in space. Their emergency beacons are working, Nancy reported. Help will come for them in a few hours. But their cargo will be very late getting where it was supposed to go. Steve smiled. Set course for the next convoy. We have a lot of work to do tonight. All across the galaxy, human ships that nobody knew existed were doing the same thing. Coalition supply lines that had worked perfectly for centuries were suddenly failing. Ships were getting lost. Cargo was disappearing. Communication networks were going offline. The aliens had no idea what was happening. They definitely had no idea that humans were causing it. Back in the Montana facility, Helen Grant received a message from Admiral Kate Sullivan. Phase 1 is complete. All human settlements report ready status. Phase 2 is beginning now. Helen looked around at her team of scientists and engineers. They were tired, but their eyes were bright with excitement. Phase 2 begins now. Start launching the manufacturing platforms. It is time to build our new future. In space above Earth, the first quantum manufacturing platform activated its engines and headed for the asteroid belt. It would arrive in 2 days and immediately begin building the first of many factories that would make humans independent of alien technology forever. The Coalition thought humans were weak because they had only been in space for a short time. They thought humans would have to come crawling back within a few weeks, begging for help. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 weeks had passed since humans walked out of the galactic negotiations. Chancellor Vex Prime stood in his command center on the Coalition capital world, staring at reports that made no sense. Explain this to me again, Vex Prime said to his military commander, General Krixvoth. His crystal body was glowing angry red. How do supply ships just disappear? General Krixvoth was a large insect-like alien with 4 arms and compound eyes. He moved his arms nervously as he spoke. The ships are not destroyed, Chancellor. They are found floating in space with all their systems shut down. The crews are alive, but their navigation computers are completely dead. And how many ships have had this problem? Over 400 in the past 3 weeks. The delays are causing shortages on 12 worlds. Vex Prime's glow got brighter. For 300 years, Coalition supply routes had worked perfectly. Ships moved goods across the galaxy like clockwork. Now everything was falling apart, and nobody could explain why. What do our investigators say? They cannot find any weapons damage on the ships. They cannot find any signs of attack. The systems just stop working, as if someone turned off a switch. Far away in space, Captain Steve Parker was turning off another switch. His invisible ship, the UES Phantom, floated next to a coalition cargo vessel carrying food supplies to a mining world. "Another clean shutdown," reported Lieutenant Nancy Brooks. "Their engines and navigation are offline, but life support is still working." Steve nodded. "Send the standard message to their emergency beacon. Help will arrive in 6 hours." This was the 47th ship Steve's crew had disabled in 3 weeks. All across Coalition space, other human ships were doing the same thing. The aliens still had no idea humans were responsible. "Captain," Nancy said, "I am getting reports from other Phantom-class ships. The aliens are starting to change their patrol patterns." "Good," Steve said. "That means they are getting scared. Scared enemies make mistakes." On the Coalition capital world, those mistakes were already happening. Chancellor Vex Prime had called an emergency meeting of all Coalition leaders. The great hall was filled with angry alien voices. "My worlds are running out of medical supplies," shouted Ambassador Threx of the Mantoid Federation. "Whatever is attacking our ships is targeting medical transports." "It is not just medical supplies," said Counselor Yeth from the Crystalline Empire. "Food shipments are being delayed. Manufacturing equipment is not arriving on schedule. Some of my factory worlds have stopped production completely." Vex Prime raised his voice above the others. "We will increase military patrols on all trade routes. We will find whoever is responsible for these attacks." "What if it is the humans?" asked a small voice from the back of the room. The hall went quiet. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Quill of the Aquatic Alliance. He was a fish-like being who rarely spoke during meetings. "Impossible," Vex Prime said. "Humans do not have the technology to attack our ships without being detected. They do not have enough ships to hit so many targets." "But they did walk away from negotiations," Quill pointed out. "What if they were more prepared than we thought?" Vex Prime's crystal body flashed with anger. "Humans are a young species with primitive technology. They could not possibly coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy." While the Coalition leaders argued, the attacks were getting worse. On Earth, General Alex Morgan was receiving reports from human commanders throughout space. "Phase 2 is exceeding all expectations," reported Admiral Kate Sullivan through the quantum communication system. "Coalition trade traffic is down 60% in the core sectors." "What about their military response?" Morgan asked. "They are moving warships to protect trade routes, but that leaves their industrial worlds less defended." Captain John Davis reports that sabotage teams have successfully hit 17 manufacturing facilities. Morgan smiled. The Coalition was doing exactly what human planners had predicted. When they moved ships to protect their trade routes, they made their factories vulnerable. When they moved ships to protect their factories, their trade routes became easy targets. And the political situation? Better than we hoped. 3 more species have contacted us about leaving the Coalition. The species leaving the Coalition were not doing it just to help humans. They were doing it because they finally saw a chance to be free. Ambassador Joran of the Altarian Republic was the first to make it official. He stood before the Coalition Council and delivered a speech that would be remembered for centuries. "The Altarian Republic formally withdraws from the Zephyrian Coalition, effective immediately," Joran announced. "We choose to pursue our own path among the stars." The reaction was immediate and angry. Coalition leaders shouted and threatened, but Joran remained calm. "For 60 years, we have given you our resources and received only demands for more," Joran continued. "We choose to stand with those who offer partnership instead of domination." Within days, the Centauri Trade Federation made a similar announcement. Then the Mining Guild of Kepler Prime. Each species that left took valuable resources and strategic positions with them. Dr. Samantha Lee. Humanity's chief economist watched the cascade effect from her office on Earth. Her computer screens showed trade flows, resource shipments, and economic data from across the galaxy. "It is beautiful," she said to her assistant, Dr. Carl Hoffman. The coalition built their entire system on the assumption that subjugated species would never rebel at the same time. What happens when they realize humans are behind this? Then it will be too late. Look at these numbers. Coalition industrial production is down 40%. Their military is spread too thin to defend everything. And every day, more species are joining our alliance. The coalition was indeed starting to understand what was happening. Intelligence reports were reaching Vex Prime that painted a terrifying picture. Human ships have been detected near 17 of our industrial worlds, General Krixvoth reported. They appear to have stealth technology we cannot match. How is that possible? Our scientists believe humans have been developing their technology in secret for years. Their ships are faster and more advanced than anything in our fleet. Vex Prime's crystal body was now glowing so bright that other aliens had to shield their eyes. Send the entire Third Fleet to human space. We will destroy their colonies and force them back to the negotiating table. Chancellor, the Third Fleet is currently protecting our core industrial worlds. If we move them, those worlds will be defenseless. Then we will use the Second Fleet. The Second Fleet is protecting our main trade routes. Moving them would leave our supply lines completely open to attack. Vex Prime realized the trap humans had built for them. Every military asset the Coalition had was already being used to protect something vital. There were no extra ships available for attacking human colonies. Meanwhile, human manufacturing platforms in the asteroid belt were working at full capacity. New ships, weapons, and equipment were being produced faster than anyone had thought. Possible Captain Lisa Campbell, now commanding the UES Liberty, watched as the latest batch of human warships left the manufacturing facility. Each ship was sleek, fast, and armed with weapons that could penetrate any known alien defense. "How many ships do we have now?" she asked her communications officer. 347 combat vessels, Captain. The production rate is increasing every day. Lisa smiled. When humans had walked away from the negotiating table, the Coalition had thought they were seeing the surrender of a weak species. Instead, they had been watching the emergence of a new galactic power. "Set course for the Proxima sector," Lisa ordered. "It is time to let the Coalition know exactly who has been disrupting their supply lines." The Coalition's perfect system was breaking down. Their trade routes were in chaos. Their allies were abandoning them. Their military was stretched too thin to protect everything at once. And somewhere in space, human ships that should not have existed were preparing to reveal themselves to the galaxy. The cascade had begun, and nothing could stop it now. 6 months after humans walked out of the galactic negotiations, the Zephyrian Coalition was no more. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries had broken into small fighting groups. Worlds that had once worked together were now at war with each other. President Lucas Thompson stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the new center of galactic government. Through the huge windows, he could see ships from 40 different species docked at the massive station. These ships had not come as conquerors or subjects. They had come as equals. "The final count is in," said Admiral Grace Turner, walking up. Behind the President, 43 species have joined the Galactic Alliance. 12 more have requested membership. Lucas nodded. The transformation had been faster than anyone had expected. Once the Coalition started falling apart, species rushed to join the new alliance that humans had created. They wanted to be part of something built on cooperation instead of fear. "What about the former Coalition worlds?" "Most of them are asking for help," Grace replied. "Without the Coalition's central control, many worlds cannot feed their populations. or maintain their technology. They need the Alliance more than the Alliance needs them. Unity Station itself was a marvel of human engineering. Built using quantum manufacturing technology, the station was larger than any city on Earth. It had everything needed to house representatives from dozens of different species. Each section was designed for different types of alien life, from water breathers to crystal beings who needed special radiation. Dr. Carl Hoffman, the new director of interspecies relations, was leading a tour of alien diplomats through the station's technology center. The aliens stared in amazement at machines that could build anything from raw materials in just hours. This quantum manufacturing technology is now available to all Alliance members, Carl explained to the group. We believe that sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger. One of the aliens, a tall blue-skinned being named Ambassador Kelt, raised his hand. Why do you share such powerful technology? Your species could use it to control others, just as the Coalition did with their technology. Carl smiled. Because control through fear always fails eventually. Partnership through trust lasts forever. The alien diplomats looked at each other with expressions of wonder. Many of them had lived their entire lives under Coalition rule. The idea that a powerful species would willingly share its advantages was completely new to them. In another part of the station, former Coalition leaders were learning about this new way of thinking. Chancellor Vex Prime, no longer a chancellor of anything, sat across a table from Jake Morrison, the human ambassador who had started everything. I do not understand your species, Vex Prime said. His crystal body had lost much of its glow since the Coalition's collapse. You defeated us completely. You could rule the galaxy as we did. Why do you choose this complicated alliance system? Jake leaned back in his chair. Because ruling others is not the same as leading them. The Coalition controlled people through fear. We inspire people through hope. But surely you must want something in return for your help. We do want something, Jake said. We want a galaxy where every species can grow and prosper. We want to explore the universe together instead of fighting over who gets to control it. Vex Prime was quiet for a long moment. And what happens to species like mine? Species that made mistakes? You learn from those mistakes and do better, Jake replied. The Alliance is open to any species that commits to the principles of mutual respect and cooperation. Even former Coalition members. This conversation was happening all across the galaxy. Former enemies were becoming new partners. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were suddenly free to develop their own cultures and technologies. Captain Lisa Campbell, now Admiral Campbell of the Alliance Defense Force, was overseeing the integration of different military technologies. Her fleet was a mixture of human ships and vessels from 20 other species, each contributing their best innovations to the common defense. The Altarian energy shields work perfectly with our stealth technology, reported Commander Ben Turner. And the Centauri navigation systems have improved our jump drive efficiency by 30%. Lisa looked at the mixed crew on her ship's bridge. Humans worked alongside crystal beings, insect-like aliens, and water-breathing creatures especially. Designed suits. A year ago, such cooperation would have been impossible under Coalition rule. Status report on the former Coalition territory? Most regions are stable now, Ben said. The few groups still trying to restart the old system are running out of support. Turns out most species prefer freedom to oppression. The transformation was not just political. It was technological and cultural as well. Dr. Helen Grant, now leading the Alliance Science Council, was amazed at how quickly progress was happening when species worked together instead of against each other. The Crystalline Empire's energy. Storage technology combined with human quantum manufacturing has increased our shipbuilding speed by 500%, she reported to the Alliance Council. The Aquatic Alliance's biocomputing systems are helping us solve problems we could never handle before. President Thompson listened to report after report of breakthrough discoveries and technological advances. What about exploration? Are we ready to expand beyond known space? More than ready, Helen said excitedly. With combined technologies from all member species, we can now travel farther and faster than anyone ever thought possible. We are ready to explore parts of the galaxy that no one has ever seen. Captain Steve Parker, the man who had started the invisible attacks on Coalition supply lines, was now leading the first Alliance exploration fleet into unknown space. His ship was no longer alone and hidden. Instead, he commanded 50 vessels, representing 15 different species, all working together to discover new worlds and new forms of life. Contact on long-range sensors, reported his science officer, Dr. Nancy Brooks. Unknown species, approximately 40 light years from here. Are they friendly? Unknown, but they are not showing any aggressive behavior. They seem curious about U.S. Steve smiled. This was exactly what the Alliance was meant for. Instead of conquering new species or demanding their submission, they would meet them as potential friends and partners. Open communication channels. Let them know we come in peace. Back on Unity Station, Jake Morrison was preparing for another diplomatic meeting. This time, the meeting was not about ending talks or making demands. It was about welcoming 3 new species that had requested to join the Alliance. As he walked to the meeting room, Jake thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been a weak species begging for scraps from powerful alien masters. Now they were the founders of the largest voluntary alliance in galactic history. The meeting room was full of beings from dozens of different worlds. They were not there because they had to be. They were there because they wanted to build something better together. The Galactic Alliance calls this meeting to order, Jake announced. Today we welcome the Spiral Confederation, the Ring World Union, and the Deep Space Collective as our newest members. As the new members took their places, Jake looked around the room. Aliens who had once been enemies were now working together. Species that had been afraid to speak were now sharing their ideas freely. Technology that had been hoarded was now being shared openly. The day humans ended talks, everything had collapsed. But from the ruins of the old system, something much better had emerged. A galaxy where cooperation replaced conquest, where diversity was celebrated instead of feared, and where the phrase humanity, had become galactic community. Chancellor. Vex Prime had been wrong about many things, but he had been right about one thing. When humans walked out of those negotiations, they had changed everything. They just had not changed it in the way he expected. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. It was led by hope. And that made all the difference.